The key to proving and improving your web strategy is scoring the value of everything you do. While it's vital to track as many meaningful interactions as possible, all that data can lead to analytics blindness. The goal is to make it easier to determine what works best. To do this, we can create a single performance indicator. Here on the scoring page, that enables us to assign values to each meaningful interaction. Scores enable us to weight them based on importance, and by totaling up the values attributed to each part of your efforts, we can uncover what drives maximum ROI. To see how this works, let's take a look at the steps that the visitor in our last video took as they went through the website. This is what we call a click stream. We can see when they entered into our first post, we gave them a small value of 1/10 of a point. Then when they came down later and submitted the contact form, we gave them 100 points. Later on, when they clicked on the Twitter profile, we assigned that to 10 points, and so forth. And from this, now we can total up what the value of all these steps are, and then we can attribute them back to things like the landing page, different traffic sources, where people are located, types of browsers they're in, and so forth. To make our demo data a little bit more interesting, I'm going to add 3 more visits to our site. So here's our original visit that we did in the previous video. This person went from link 2 to blog post B, and it was a hard bounce. They were only on the site for a couple seconds. This person went to blog post C and actually stayed around and read it, so we actually have a stick or they didn't bounce. And then the fourth one is someone who went to demo post D and then shared this post on Facebook. So let's look at how these reports start to tell us where value is coming from our website. Since all of our data is going into Google Analytics, we can use GA's reports to look at these things. But we found that we can maximize visibility of performance if we integrate the data directly into WordPress. In Google Analytics, to get a complete picture, you often have to be an expert at piecing data together from multiple places. The intelligence scorecards do that work for you, giving you 360-degree of how elements of your site are performing. So for example, this is our site scorecard. As we scroll down, what we wanted to do is highlight value, not just vanity metrics like page hits. And so we see that our value here are things that are being highlighted. As we scroll down, we can see here are all the goals that are happening on our website. Here are all the different valued events or micro goals that are happening on our website. Here's our top content. Here are our top traffic sources. And again, this is demo data, so it's not as full. When you start to see a real website, this will really start to fill in. Not only can we see the value of our whole site, but we can analyze many different components, such as, for example, we can look at the traffic sources to our site. This is broken down into various different areas. So for example, if I look at keywords, each one of our demo visitors entered using a different keyword, and so we can start to understand what terms might provide the most value. I can also look at a scorecard. So for example, for term 1, I can look at the scorecard of just people that entered in through that term, what happened. And we can see the different goals and valued events that happen through those things. We can also apply this process to our visitors. So for example, I can look at things like value based on where people are located. What types of device are they on? In particular, what's great is to look at things like, are we seeing a different level of performance or objectives being achieved in mobile versus on a desktop? One of the most interesting areas to look at is scoring your content. So for example, if you want to understand what types of blog posts are producing the most value, we can go ahead and do that in our scoring area. I'm going to go ahead and clear out our keyword. And what we see is, here's the value that different pieces of content are producing. One of the things we really wanted to do is allow people who are authoring or editing blogs to know the impact that their content is making. And so if you go over to, say, a piece of content on your website, you now get this link up here that allows you to go directly to a page scorecard that shows you the value that's being generated just from this piece of content. And so we see from this blog post A, that first visitor came through, they submitted the contact form, and while they didn't actually do any sharing or engagement events on that page, those would show up here, they did some things on pages down later on in their session that are showing up in this report here, and we can even break things down by what traffic sources are producing the most value that are going through this particular page. One of the features of the premium edition of Intelligence is we can actually break content down even further and look at things like, clear out my filter, we can look at things like what authors are producing the most value or what different types of taxonomies are producing the most value. For example, if I go to categories It'll now total up all the value of each post that is set with a certain taxonomy. And then we can divide that by the number of pages to start to understand what types of subjects people might be most interested in. We can study all kinds of different things, such as the tone of an article, or even the length of article and things like that using the same technique. The page attribute feature is available in either the basic, premium, or pro versions of Intelligence. All the other things are available for free. Another really interesting thing to look at with the pro version is we can actually track individual visitors to our website. So for example, our 4 people that came through, people who have not submitted a form yet, they're tracked as anonymous, but we can still recreate a click stream of what they did on the website. The other thing that the pro version of Intelligence does is starts to build your contact list and builds profiles of who the people are coming to your website. So just by submitting that form, we were able to go out and figure out any public identifiable information about me using my email address, such as our location. We brought in data from Google Analytics for location and browser environment, and then we're also integrating data in from WordPress as far as what forms are being submitted. We build that as a single profile based around known people when they do an identifiable event. The goal of analytics should be to empower your team to understand and improve their results. By tracking and scoring meaningful interactions, then attributing value to key parts of your website marketing efforts, we can start to gain a real advantage that only comes from being results-oriented and data-driven.